Welcome back to Maui Mallard and Cold Shadow. It's time for a bonus video. And we're going to be showing off the PC version, which, if you remember in the very beginning of the thread, I promised I'd show it off, and I'm going to follow through on that promise. So this is the PC version. It was made in 1995, around the same time as the Super Nintendo. And, according to the little pamphlet that was inside the CD case, this game will run on Windows 95, Windows 98, and Windows 3.1. And trying to get this game to run on a modern system like, say, Windows 8 or Windows 7, it's a pain in the butt. This game uses Redbook CDA, which, to my knowledge, it just means that you can take the CD and put it in a CD player and it would play the music, but it also means that it makes it really tough for an emulated Windows 98 computer to play the music, because back then you had to have a physical cable connected to your disk drive, to my knowledge, in order to hear the music. So whenever I'm playing this game, I get no music whatsoever. I only get the sound effect. So I spliced in the music in post, and I do apologize in advance if my audio mixing is really bad. So without further ado, let's get started. This video is going to be mostly focused on showing the differences between the Mega Drive version and this version, which you're probably wondering, well, what differences would there be? Well, surprisingly, there are quite a few different changes made to certain levels to make them sort of easier, or make them a little different, and we'll go over those as we go along. So the first difference is that all the sound effects in this game have been changed, and some of them are hit and miss. For example, some sounds like the health pickup are louder than others, so it's a bit hit and miss there. Also, the graphics have been changed. It's sort of better. The environments in later levels look absolutely great, as opposed to some of them in other levels. Like this one, it pretty much just looks the same. It's not that much different from the Mega Drive version. And the character sprites, I don't know, I'm a little iffy on them. It's like you took a really high-res drawing and then just sized it down, and it kind of makes him look a bit jagged. I mean, it looks okay in movement, but when you're standing still, it doesn't look too great. At least to me. So here's our first minor change. These pillars that used to drop down on you, in the Mega Drive version you were allowed to walk through them, but in this version we're not allowed to at all. It's a very minor change, but I figure I'd bring it up here. So here's another change. The ceiling fans, in the Mega Drive version, they were already in motion, but they're turned off by default in the PC version. The switch that turns them on and off is still working and there, so I'm not quite sure why they decided to do that. I guess players were complaining that they couldn't figure out how to turn them off, or couldn't figure out how to get past this little section, so they decided to turn them off. Another change from the Mega Drive and PC version, the water originally would kill you instantly if you fell in it, but in the PC version, if you fall into it, you just take some damage and you should be fine. On practice mode it takes 10 damage, in normal and hard it takes 25. Also, here's an example of what happens when the game needs to loop music tracks. As you can see, that's a bit jarring whenever that happens, especially whenever it has to happen when you're doing something, and I don't know, that could be a deal breaker for me. But then again, it was the 90s, I don't think anybody really cared if that happened to you. So for level 2, there's quite a significant change. In the Mega Drive version, you had to hold down the ammo change button to transform into a ninja. For the PC version, you actually have a dedicated button that you can bind to any key to quickly change it in between Maui and the ninja. That also goes for the speed dash move as well. Also, I'm not exactly sure if the developers took the time to improve anything or not, but in the PC version, swinging around sort of feels a lot better. But I'm not saying that for certain because I never got a chance to play either of these games on their original hardware, so I'm just taking a guess at what I experienced. So here is the first level change that was made. This platform was extended so it would be a little easier to jump onto that swinging platform, which was really nice because trying to do it from that bouncing platform was a challenge in of itself. So I'm glad they actually decided to extend that platform out a little bit to make it a little easier. Also, this is in the Mega Drive version, but I didn't notice this before, but there's a little hidey hole at the end of that little chase sequence. Also, you might notice that the passwords are different from the Mega Drive version. So according to a comment on the second update, the PC version uses the Brazilian passwords, which I'm not exactly sure if the Brazilian passwords are in English or not, but basically they use different passwords. So it was quite a surprise to see that the Mega Drive passwords weren't working when I was trying to skip levels. So for level 3, the Mudrakes were changed to constantly say their lines and constantly make noise. I wouldn't exactly say that it doesn't get obnoxious to hear them say something every time you shot them or see them, but that is a change they made, so for better or for worse, that's there. And just to clarify, when I say they say stuff more often, when you hit them, they did that in the Mega Drive version, but they didn't do it. They did that in the Mega Drive version, but they weren't nearly as loud as they are now, is what I'm getting at. Also, I didn't mention it yet, but the electric fire combination was nerfed in this version. So now instead of one shot, it takes 2 shots to kill a Mudrake. Which I'm kinda sad to see that actually happen, because it's quite a powerful ammunition type, and I wouldn't imagine why nerfing it would make it any better, because now it's just as strong as the 2 ammos individually. So, I really don't see the point in doing that. Well anyways, here's another thing that I didn't show off in the Mega Drive version. At the very end, when you shoot that cork, you can jump up to the top of the level and you can actually climb across it to get an extra life. Alright, now time for the boss. And the boss... well, the boss is essentially the same, but when you shoot him, when he's about to fall over, he does a little leaning animation, which is kind of nice to see that. It's not really doing anything, it's just a nice little addition. Although, I'm not exactly sure what's up with the crowd, though. They look, well, they don't exactly look like Mudrakes, they sort of look like a series of dolls sitting on a shelf or something. which I find a little bit weird because in the Mega Drive version they look better than they are now, so I don't know. I guess whoever drew them just didn't really want to bother too much with them, or they were constrained for time or something. Also, this boss fight, for whatever reason, feels a little bit longer. It might be just because of the electric fire combination nerf, but it feels a little bit longer than its Mega Drive counterpart. We're going to be skipping over level 4 because I already showed off the only difference in the Mega Drive video, so on to level 5. So for level 5, there's not a whole lot different, but I did notice something while I was recording, and that is when you die, instead of losing all of your zombie powder bags, you actually only lose 100 points instead of all of them. That also goes for the Ninja too. In terms of combo coins, you only lose about like 1, I think, and you keep the rest. And every death you keep losing like 1 or so. So in the Mega Drive video, I didn't exactly show off what happens if you mess up a little bit and accidentally fall somewhere. And here's a perfect example of what happens when you do that. You will fall a great amount of height and you will lose so much progress. And now it's time for level 6, and level 6 doesn't really have any differences, really. Just a couple of really minor things, but I do want to draw your attention to the ambiance whenever the music's not playing, because I think it sounds a little neat. So the only real change in this level is that the pirate dude that's in the boat, he looks a little different. He's colored a little differently from the Mega Drive version. And after defeating the Flying Duck Man, he will burst into flames. That's about it. There's really nothing that changes the gameplay or anything like that. It's more aesthetic changes. And lastly, level 7. We won't be looking at the final level because A, it's not a part of this update, and B, it looks exactly the same from the Mega Drive version, except for with updated graphics and music. The same kind of goes here, except the palette is darker, which makes it a little nicer to see the terrain. Also, the fog effect that was in the Mega Drive version is no longer there. And for whatever reason, I'm not exactly sure if it was intended this way, but that ectoplasm that was originally green is now dark gray that's transparent, so it's really tough to see. Not to mention it's really tough to gauge where it starts and ends. So, not exactly the best choice I would have made. And other than that, the level is exactly the same. And, that's pretty much it in terms of the main game. But before we end out, why don't we take a look at debug mode. To access debug mode, we have to enter 2 passwords, one after the other. So after you enter the first one, you enter the second one, and you will get a confirmation. And after you get that confirmation, a new menu item will open up saying debug. And inside the debug menu, we can go to any level we choose, as well as having 2 extra options. We can turn off the enemy collision, meaning that we can't get hurt. And we can turn map mode on or off. And if it's on, it just plays the game regularly, but if it's turned off, when you start the level, this happens. So with map mode off, Maui is removed from the level and the game will sort of put you in a free roam sort of camera. However, for whatever reason in the PC version, apparently up or down were the only controls that were working. It might have been just some little bug or some key that I couldn't find. But it lets you look at the entire level with the enemy placements and everything. It's just no Maui on, and you can't complete the game. Also, a big difference between the PC version and the Mega Drive version: in the first 2 levels, if you die, the game will give you hints as to how to play the game. And here are all of them. And one final thing, some of you mentioned that you got a demo of this game through your copy of Toy Story. Well, it's the same sort of thing for this game. If you install the game, you also get a demo for Toy Story. And you won't believe what level they decided to let us demo.
To infinity and beyond!
It's the race car one. You know, everyone's favorite level. And on this virtual machine, it runs like shit. And I can't even beat it. I can't even get past the first turn. So, yay. Well, that just about covers everything. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration of the PC version. I hope you join me next time. See ya.